Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out themichaeldukesshow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
This is my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, right here on the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or translator, FM translator, and around the world at michaeldukesshow.com on the internet, where you will find our audio-only live stream and, of course, links to all of the social media sites that we have, and Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and the podcast and lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. Good morning, and thanks for coming in and joining us today on the program as we get things ready to rock and roll. All right. We're ready to get into it. We're ready to go and dive into it. Today on the program, we got a lot of headlines to cover, a lot of different stories to discuss. And also, of course, here in hour one, we're going to be talking with Zach Weissmueller, who is a video correspondent for Reason Magazine. He recently had a piece up in Reason that talked about the culpability, I guess I would say, of the news media in all of the attacks and the mass shootings, I guess we've seen in America. What does it mean? I mean, what is their part in in the mass shootings? What are they making them worse? Is really the title of his question. I think that we probably all know the answer to that. The answer to that is yes. But what's the reasoning? Why? How can we fix it? And we're going to talk with Zach Weissmueller here in just a little bit to discuss that. I've posted the links to his latest article from about a week and a half ago, up in the Facebook chat, in the YouTube, Facebook, just go to the thing and do it there. You can find it there. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit, and see what we'll see what's going on with that. And then in hour 2, we will open up the phone lines for gun Q&A, and we'll talk with you and answer questions, because there's no such thing as a dumb gun question, as we've said before. And the whole point of the show is to try and demystify firearms, the Second Amendment, and, try to counteract some of the idiocy that we see from talking heads who really usually have no idea what they're talking about. As was the case with the big interview from a CBS affiliate in Pittsburgh, when they recently interviewed the new ATF director, Steve Dettelbach. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about the New York carry laws and how they're now facing new scrutiny from the judge that ruled against staying them the other day. They had another court case, and they're back up to discuss that again. President Biden's latest comments on guns, which again, it was kind of seems like it was more just willfully uninformed, and now it looks like it's all intentional. Now it appears that it is, now it appears that it's all intentional. The phraseology, the comments, the revisionist history that we see on that. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Minneapolis's defund the police movement and the inevitable outcome of that. What else do I got here? Oh, Alec Baldwin. Oh, he's back in the news. Alec Baldwin back in the news. You'll remember that was, of course, the guy that, Alec Baldwin, the actor, who ended up shooting the director of photography on the set of his movie and killing her. That's another. So a lot of stories, a lot of headlines. Open it up for Q&A in hour 2, and then we will finish up the show on a bit of a lighter note and talk with Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Our good friend Willie Waffle, who's going to come on board and talk with us and give us the entertainment and stream reviews. It's a way of kind of lightening up, what is, generally speaking, kind of a heavy topic throughout the day. And so we're going to get into that here in just a bit. So Zach Weissmueller, phone calls, question and answers, headlines, and Willie Waffle. That's the whole show today. The whole show, and nothing but the show. All right. Well, let's see what the headlines bring. I guess we'll start with this story about Alec Baldwin, because this made some serious headlines. There's lots of failure points in this story as you look at it. Whether it was the master armorer's position to check the firearms, whether the assistant producer who was working with the master armorer, whether that was involved, whether it was Alec Baldwin himself who should have been. I mean, there's a lot of questions that go on about this. And this is a tough deal because, again, you're talking about a movie where, due to the nature of making a fictitious story and having to film it, sometimes, the 4 gun safety rules are out the window, right? Because it's a movie and you're trying to make it realistic. And so people have to put their fingers on the trigger. They have to point their guns at other people. They have to do these things. And so it is paramount that in these situations that because you're violating a bunch of the gun safety rules, that the guns either need to be, thoroughly checked, or they need to be fake guns. I mean, that's kind of there's only kind of two choices there. But there is also some personal responsibility, I would think, from an actor's point of view, of making sure that the firearm that you have, that you would educate yourself enough to be able to partially check it yourself. That's just kind of my take on it. But it looks like now, according to reports from the Daily Mail and a couple other major outlets, that Alec Baldwin may potentially be looking at charges being filed against him. New Mexico prosecutors have indicated that they may charge Alec Baldwin over the fatal shooting of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the set of his movie Rust last year, after the actor handed over his cell phone to be considered as evidence. So after that they've looked at his cell phone, then there were questions. And of course, there's lots of videos of Alec Baldwin being on the phone immediately after the shooting. In a letter to the state's financial board asking for funding to prosecute the high-profile case, Santa Fe District Attorney Mary Carmack Altweiss said she was ready to file charges against 4 people. She stopped short of confirming the charges she planned to bring, but said that, quote, certainly looking at all the homicide statutes and any gun statutes under New Mexico Criminal Code, unquote. One of the possible defendants is well-known movie actor Alex Baldwin, unquote, she wrote. She's asked for $635,000 to prosecute the case, saying she needs the money to go up against well-paid attorneys. And so it looks like he is going to be charged. Now, is it with murder? Maybe not. Manslaughter is probably the more likely charge, because that is usually no intention of harm, just kind of a reckless disregard for safety. But if she's talking about the homicide statutes, is there something going on we don't know about? Was there some anger issues? Was there conflict between them? I mean, nobody knows. But anyway, Alec Baldwin may be having to face that up here in the next few weeks. We'll see what goes on with that. I mean, it's a tragedy, unfortunately, but maybe we're going to find out that it was a preventable tragedy, and we can go on from there. Well, President Biden's at it again. We've talked a lot about this over the last 5 or 6 months as the president has gone on the warpath about firearms, and his continuous, I was calling it misinformation, but it's downright just lies at this point, about historical firearms use, about the law, about the formation and foundation of the Second Amendment. And initially, like I said, I thought it was just kind of Joe Biden being Joe Biden, kind of the Muppet in chief, where he just kind of spouts off the cuff and doesn't really know what's going on. But he keeps saying the same things, and he keeps putting out more and more misinformation. J.D. Tuccilli over at Reason Magazine wrote a recent article that basically headlines it all, says Joe Biden lies about guns again. And saying, look, government lies aren't new. Political fibs they have such deep roots in the history that we could open up a museum of, and have enough rotating exhibits to keep things fresh for years. We get all this misinformation, which is ironic, of course, because the government now is deciding that they're the ones that want to be the gatekeepers of what is misinformation and what isn't. His latest gaffe was from last week, and again, maybe it's a gaffe, but it just seems more and more like it's being intentional. He said in a recent press conference that there's no justification for a weapon of war, none. The speed of that bullet is 5 times that comes out of the muzzle of most weapons. It could penetrate your vest. What in God's name do you need an assault weapons for? Well, of course, you'll remember that, the president also talked about a 9mm blowing your lungs out. And just all these really hyperbolic commentary. And of course, he also said that we couldn't buy a cannon, that the Second Amendment was never about that, which of course we've debunked thoroughly on this program. But the the question is, he says, do you realize the bullet of an AR-15 travels 5 times as rapidly as a bullet shot out of any other gun? 5 times. And it can pierce Kevlar, which again is the AR-15 does not travel 5 times faster than any other bullet shot out of any other gun. I mean, the average muzzle velocity of a AR-15 is about 3,000 feet per second, 3,100 or so feet per second. It's slower than others, faster than some. Obviously, pistols travel fast. The 45 caliber is about 1,000 feet per second. So this is 3 times what a handgun does. But most rifles are upwards of that range, in the 3,000 feet per second range. And it doesn't. And as far as impacting Kevlar, any rifle round pretty much will go through, any center fired rifle cartridge will go through Kevlar. Kevlar is meant to stop handgun rounds. To stop rifle rounds, you need, ceramic and metal plates, composite plates. That's what you need to put in those things. I mean, that's not a surprise. Your 30-06, your dad's old hunting rifle will shoot through a Kevlar vest. But see, it sounds better. It sounds good when they go through it. And again, this is the same guy that said that, you should just stick your shotgun out the window and shoot it if somebody's in your house to get him to get out of your house. This is not the guy you want to be taking gun advice from. But he just keeps at it. And again, I don't think it's, like I said, I used to think that it was accidental. Now I just think it's intentional. I really do. All right. Well, those are a couple of the headlines. We got some more we're going to get to here in a little bit, but we're up against the break, and we've got Zach Weissmueller. He's sitting in the green room. I can see him right now. We're going to be jumping over to him. Again, his article, his latest video piece, an article in Reason Magazine, asked the question, is the media making mass shootings worse? To which I think we probably can answer that, but we're going to get his take on it here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show continues. It is your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and translator, FM translator, and around the world at michaeldukeshow.com. We will be back with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and michaeldukeshow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now, getting ready to jump into it. Again, I see Zach is in the green room for us right now, so let's pop on over there and say hi to him. It's pretty obvious that he is a professional videographer. Look at how clean that picture is.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Zach Weissmueller, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
Good. How are you?
Good. I really appreciate you coming on board and joining us here as we get ready to talk about. I really enjoyed your piece about the media's involvement in this, and of course, you've done a lot of things on Reason that I admire. And so this is the first time we've got a chance to talk. I deal with a lot of the guys from Reason, JD and Eric Boehm and Too Chilly and all those folks out there. So it's good to have you on board for the first time, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
So we're going to dive into that here in just a second. Your audio's good,
Okay.
Your video's good, and so I'll put you back in the green room here, and we are about 3 minutes and 40 seconds from rejoining the radio.
All right, perfect. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Okay, let me get caught up in the chat room here on the comments in the chat room, because comments reign supreme on live video. That's what we got to do here. Okay, so let me go back to the top of the page here, see how you guys are doing. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Click, click, boom, says Bill. Yep, that's Firearms Friday for you. Click, click, boom. All right. At least it's still raining. That was the comment from yesterday. It's cold and dark outside, but at least it's still raining. I mean, that's one way to look at it. At least there's no snow yet. It's coming, I'm sure. Does anyone have a line on 410 shells? Nope. Okay. What are we saying this morning? Everybody is talking about the weather and everything else, and Alec getting his comeuppance. I mean, again, I don't know if he intentionally shot her or not, but I mean, it's a tragedy no matter what here, whether it's arrogance or stupidity or malice. Hopefully that will all come out in the long run there, but we'll find it out. Somebody just told me to check my email, which means somebody dropped me an email when I wasn't looking, because I looked this morning. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that this morning here. Man, these people like pulled all the stories that I was going to talk about today. Yep, I got it all. Thank you, Greg, for your email there. Those are all stories that I was already going to cover, so we're gonna look at it. The lady he shot was doing a documentary about child abuse. Okay. I'm moving forward here. It's getting to the point that it's not funny anymore. Oh, the rain. Rick is talking about the rain. Everybody's talking about the rain. I mean, what have we had in the last 2 months? What have we had? 3-4 days where it actually didn't rain and it was sunshine? I mean, I keep joking about Noah and the ark and a boat and looking down the street to look for it, but it's really getting bad. Okay. Biden's being deliberately provocative. Maybe. Or maybe he's just reading notes that somebody handed him. I don't know. Good morning. We're trying to be good denizens of the 6 o'clock club, says Brian. Well, you're doing a good job. And you are all honorary members of the 6 o'clock club, which is a club that nobody cares about, but you were all members of. I care about it, but nobody else cares. All right. Well, I'm ready to get this done. We've got Zach waiting in the wings, and we are about ready to jump back into it. Don't forget that I would love to have more people involved in the conversation. Again, Fridays, we have about half the number of people in the chat rooms that we normally do. And I think it's simply because we're so specialized today. We're talking not specifically about Alaskan politics, but about my favorite topic of firearms. And so I would invite go ahead and invite your gun folks here, folks that you know in the gun community from outside the state. I mean, why not? Fred calls in from Rhode Island and Brady calls in from Las Vegas all the time. Why don't we have people calling in from all over the country? So share the show, no matter what platform you're on, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, whatever. Share the show, like this video, and let's get it going on. You know what that is? That's a reminder for me to shut my pie hole and for us to move ahead. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's get this done. Zach Weissmueller up next. Here we go. All right, welcome back to the program. It is Firearms Friday, this beautiful rainy Friday here on the Michael Duke Show. Joining us on the program right now is Zach Weissmueller, who is he's a video correspondent, senior producer over at Reason Magazine. He does documentaries, video shorts, all different kinds of stuff. Most of his reporting, though, is of a video nature, and I really love it because it pulls in. You can see what he's talking about with real life examples and things like that. His most recent piece that I was reading was the question that he posted, which basically said, is the media making mass shootings worse? And he has some research, including from some experts who are saying, yes, they really are. And Zach Weissmueller joins us this morning to discuss it. Good morning, my friend. Thanks for coming on board and joining us today.
Good morning. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Well, I appreciate that. So, Zach, let's talk about the premise of this first. I mean, what kind of instigated this story? I mean, is this something you kind of sit around as you're watching news reports and things, you're scratching your head going, is this making it better or worse? What was the genesis of this whole project here?
Yeah, so after that horrible shooting in Uvalde, Texas, I just started thinking more about this question because all the usual conversations came up, questions about gun control, keeping guns out of the hands of mentally ill people, The problem of kind of just lonely, adrift young men who do these horrible things. And these are the questions that the media typically raises. And it seems like we're having the same conversation over and over again. But I had always wondered about the role that media itself played in this. The first, one of the major documentary that came out about this a long time ago from, the left winger Michael Moore, Bowling for Columbine. It's interesting if you watch that documentary, he actually goes into this question, and it's, the documentary is certainly about gun control, but it's also about the media and the fact that fear sells. And I decided to dig a little bit into the empirical literature on this question, and was actually pretty surprised to find there's quite a bit of research on this, and it all points in the direction of the media's coverage of this topic exacerbating the problem.
Right. Well, and we see, of course, we all know the old adage, of course, it's that, bad news is what sells. I mean, it's not good news doesn't sell. It's always the bad news. And of course, now in the era of the internet and the clickbaity headline and how many eyeballs can we get and the views and everything else, it seems to be, it's like a race to the bottom to see who can put the most lurid details or the most, the most information about the killers and things like that out there. And of course, even you reference it in your article, even the Columbine killers were walking around talking about who was going to make a movie about them. I mean, that it is a claim to fame. Dr. John Lott's been on the program many times and said that in many instances, the shooters of these, the actors in these incidents are writing in their journals and in their manifestos about how they want to be remembered and they want that, 5 minutes of fame. Any fame is infamy or fame, either one. And so this is a big problem, and the news media seems to be stepping right into that role and filling it.
Yeah, well, the incentives are obvious. When we know that fear sells, and that it's kind of focusing on just the most threatening things that happen, and inflating threats, it's hard to take a look at yourself and what you are doing to contribute to that when all the incentives are pointing in the right way. And that was, when I started to look into this, I found that there was a rather robust body of research there, and it's in academia, and also the FBI itself has put out reports, their behavioral analysis unit, saying this exact thing, saying, please, we need to, American media needs to rethink how they cover these events, because it's not necessarily serving the public interest, and it's making things more dangerous.
Right. And you spoke to a criminologist, a University of Alabama criminologist, Adam Langford, and he went into this in detail with you in your video, which, again, I would recommend people go out and watch this this video. It's not very long, but it's really informative. Give us tell us a little bit about what Langford said about this whole body of work as you're talking about in academia on the effect of media in mass shootings.
Yeah, so his was the name that kept coming up as I was looking at this research. He's been a criminologist for more than 20 years, and has really focused a lot of his work on this question of mass killers. And, what he says, what he basically started doing is just reading what they've said about their motivations. And the majority of mass shooting events over the years, fame seeking has been a motivation. And the disturbing thing about it is, when fame seeking has been a motivation, the body counts have been consistently higher. And so then he's also looked at the reverse question, which is, how much attention has the media given to the shooters, thereby fulfilling their fame-seeking desire. And the disturbing reality is that, in some cases, it's been like $75 million worth of free media coverage, more than a Super Bowl or an Academy Award winner would get. And one of his most disturbing findings to me was that the higher the body count, the more mentions that the more media mentions that the killer received. So
Right.
that's a real perverse cycle. And what you've been seeing is that these events have been getting deadlier and deadlier, from the Pulse shooting in Orlando to the Las Vegas one. It just keeps escalating because these people are feeding on each other. They keep trying. They keep track of the body counts, and they're trying to beat the last one.
Right, which again, makes you think of, it's back to the kill count of the video games and things like that, and you're like,
Yeah.
this is the kind of mentality that they're bringing into this. I mean, it shocked me when he brought that up. That I mean, Super Bowl winners don't get the kind of media coverage that shooters do, and who really suffers in this? I mean, is the victims and the victims' family. They get almost no coverage on this program. We have a policy that I will never name the actual shooter. I won't show his image. I won't talk about him. I'll reference him as the Pulse shooter, the Parkland shooter, but I will never say their name, and I will never post a picture of them because I believe that contributes to the fame. And there are some media outlets that do things similarly, but it seems like the big ones, man, it is wall-to-wall coverage from the time it starts for, 24 hours a day for days on end.
Yeah. And it's not even, all you have to do is go to the websites of any of the major outlets and just, type in the event, and you will find that this norm has not been adopted widely. There's been some shift. There has been a shift in mainstream media towards showing talking more about the victims. And so on balance, the victims as a whole now do get more coverage than the individual shooter. But then if you break it down to individual victims versus the shooter, no single victim gets more coverage than the shooter himself. And then there's the related problem of publishing, the manifesto or doing deep dives into the motivations and the ideology. And again, that is only incentivizing people doing this sort of thing because they know that the media is going to tell their life story and amplify their ideas. And the question that I am always trying to ask as a journalist is my work serving the public interest? Am I actually giving people useful information that and not just serving my own clickbait type of interests? And in this case, it's not clear that naming a suspect or a criminal who's already been apprehended or killed serves any public interest. It's another thing if they're out there, they haven't been apprehended yet. Yes, you got to show their mugshot and name and everything like that so that people can help capture them. But once they've been captured, there's no clear public interest in doing this.
Right. And of course, as you said, academia has been targeting this, but also the Department of Justice and the FBI, and they've been trying to give some guidance on this. Now, again, as libertarians, it's we don't necessarily want the government deeming what people could say and what they can't say, but at the same time, there is still some common sense laid out in this guidance. What does the FBI and the Department of Justice say?
Well, their request is that the media should not name the assailants. The assailants don't post their photographs or videos. Don't publish these detailed investigations into their lives and motives. And that's pretty much in accordance with what Lankford was saying as well. And yeah, that was a question I had for Lankford because I wanted to be clear that we're not talking about government regulation of what the media can cover. I don't think any of us want to see that, and that would probably actually have the perverse effect of creating more intrigue and taboo on it. And there is that question anyway of okay, if there's kind of a voluntary media blackout on this sort of coverage, the information will obviously still be out there. These kind of sick forums on the internet, the information will get circulated around. So is the cat out of the bag at this point? Is there any way to combat it? And I asked Lankford that, and he thinks that it still would help because even though the information is out there and there's these kind of sick little groups out there, at least it's not getting amplified. And you can kind of think about it in like coverage of suicides. We know that suicide can be contagious. So if there's a lot of coverage of a suicide in a community, there you can almost predict that there's going to be X number of additional suicides, and the same sort of effect is going on here. So there's a strong case for media to just be a lot more mindful of that going forward.
Right. And again, we're not talking about regulation. We're kind of, I mean, I guess I would phrase it, we're talking about human decency, right? We're talking about not glorifying the actions of madmen and killers, and trying to keep that down. Zach Weissmueller is our guest from Reason Magazine. You can find his work at reason.com. We're up against a commercial break. I want to talk a little bit more about him, about some of the solutions that are possible and any of his other insights that he may have gleaned while putting this article and video together that maybe he didn't share with us, and maybe some insights that he'd like to give to us. We're going to continue here in just a moment, the Michael Dukes Show. It is Firearms Friday, that one day a week we dedicate to firearms, the Second Amendment, guns, gun rights, and more. We will return in just a moment. Your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Zach Weissmueller returns with us in just a moment, right after this.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend.
Michael Dukes Show.
Okay, we're in the commercial break with Zach, and Zach, it is amazing, and in fact, Harold in the chat room had just mentioned that before you had, talking about Alaska's media policy is to not report Alaska suicides because many suicide clusters develop, and we already have a really tragic situation in this state where we have a tremendous number of suicides, one of the highest per capita in the nation. And that's the last thing we need. And yet we're okay with implanting the ideas of homicide. Suicide's verboten, but the homicide is okay. It's fair game. And again, I think it comes back to that race for clicks, race for eyeballs. That's what it is. And I think that's the tragedy of this, is that there are people there may be people like you or journalists saying, is this fulfilling the public good? And yet they've got the bean counters and the VPs and the suits in the corner offices who are like, where are my clicks? Where are my eyeballs? Where are my website visits? And I think that's a tragedy.
Yeah. Another example beyond suicides is also, where the media has adopted a voluntary norm is rape victims. We don't publish the name of rape victims because it's harmful to the person and it doesn't serve anybody to do that. So there's precedent for, and there's no law saying you can't do that. It's just any respectable outlet is not going to do that. And that's kind of the idea, is like, can we move towards a place where it's just seen as not respectable to do that as an organization?
I want to sidebar for just a second, and because I don't repeat myself. I don't want to repeat, in the break and then back onto radio. So I want to take something that I came away from your article on that just kind of shocked me. And that was the news that the folks in Uvalde have decided to knock down this school and build a new one. Which to me is, I guess emotionally I can understand the response, but at the same time, it seems like it's not changing anything, I guess, maybe other than the memory of the hallways for some people or whatever. But it just seems like it is. It's not virtue signaling. I don't think it's on that level, but it's just kind of a thing of going through the motions of trying to change things that really won't change anything in the long run.
Yeah, I can kind of understand, any parent who sent their children to that school, I don't think is ever going to want to walk into that building again. So yeah, I can definitely understand the impulse to just knock it down. And I kind of brought that into the piece because I was thinking, like, this is really what we want to do to the legacies of these killers, is just like flatten it, bury it. We don't need to talk about them. We need to talk about the people who were victimized by this, and like the actual solutions that might help prevent this in the future.
Right. I mean, I love that imagery of saying, again, bring a bulldozer to the legacy and the reputation of these people and just
Yeah.
bury it right under the ground. Their faces never to be seen, their names never to be mentioned. Like I said, you can say it's the Uvalde shooter, but you don't know anything about him and nobody cares. We're going to actually go into that here in the next segment, though, because I know that while we still don't want their names and faces and the fame to follow them, we still want to understand some of the underlying causes on this.
Mhm.
And is this something that did you reach out to any of the media outlets and talk to anybody at any of these major media outlets about this occurrence of naming and faces and things like that? Did you have a chance to talk to any of your colleagues and other media outlets?
Outside of our organization, no, I didn't talk to anybody about this. But I'm hoping that, the video has some influence. I know that, lots of media people follow me on Twitter and so forth. So I'm hoping, it kind of spreads osmotically that way.
This is like a stealth campaign to say, let me show you what you're doing. I won't name names. Let me show you what you're doing. Maybe I can shame you
Yeah.
into doing the right thing.
Yeah, yeah. Because bringing someone on and kind of interrogating them or something that I don't know that it's going to be the most productive or persuasive way at this point. Maybe if we don't see any behavioral change, like it's going to be time to get a little more aggressive. But for this one, I just wanted to have a conversation with Professor Langford about it.
Well, and it's good. And I think Langford has so many insights. And again, I'm encouraging people to go out and view Zach's report. And he's a videographer, so his reporting. There's a transcript of it, but you should watch it because it's interesting to see the interview. And I agree. I mean, my policy has been this way for years because again, I just felt like the news media was just not idolizing, but just putting this famous face on all these shooters and everything else. And I just thought that's sick. I mean, that's the height of sickness. These are people who have killed other people, and you're glorifying it. And you wonder why. Again, it makes more sense now when you're talking about suicides and rapes and things like that, where that is an encouragement to others to copycat it. I could see how that comes about. Okay, the ding means we got to jump back into it. Zach Weissmueller is our guest from Reason Magazine. You can find his stuff at reason.com. Let's jump back into it. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Zach Weissmueller joins us from Reason Magazine. He is a senior producer over there and journalist. I guess video journalist. Is that the right phrase, Zach? I mean, is that what you
That's
do?
how I describe myself. Yeah.
Yeah, video journalism, which I love to read, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of nice to see, especially when you're talking to experts and you're bringing them into the video and we can actually see their emotions and the way that they talk about things. I find those to be sometimes a lot more compelling depending on the subject matter. Sometimes it can get a little dry, unless you got people in there.
Yeah,
But
and it's like the visuals and audio and writing working together is the best way for the human mind to learn. That there's
right.
been studies on just like comprehension, the visuals and the text working together. It tends to people tend to retain things better that way. So that's why I find it just a really powerful medium to work within.
And your stuff, again, not to pat you on the back too hard, but your stuff is very well produced, and I appreciate
thank you so much.
All right. Well, Langford, again, talks about not wanting to create government regulation, but trying to encourage people to be decent and trying to encourage media outlets to do that. But he does make a distinction here that while we shouldn't be naming the shooters, we shouldn't be naming them, we shouldn't be showing their pictures, we shouldn't be idolizing them or putting them out there. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk and look about and publicize the underlying causes of some of the behaviors and things that are going on. Give me some more details on that.
Yeah, so all that information can be useful both in terms, because one concern you would have if this information were to be kind of voluntarily suppressed in a way is that you might worry about, well, what if there's some sort of pattern linking all these people together, whether it's some sort of loosely organized terrorist outfit, or just like a common thread that might have some sort of policy implications. We know that mental illness is a problem. So all that is useful information for us to know. But all of that can be published without doing, identifying the person either by name or using their picture, or even publishing like detailed manifestos, or investigations into their family life, or anything like that. So the idea is just to keep the useful information while not publishing things that pretty much exist for to appeal to our prurient interests. I mean, we all
Right.
have this like fascination with true crime. You can see how popular that genre is. Like, I'm watching the Dahmer series on Netflix right now, which I'm kind of like ashamed about, but it's like, that's kind of the problem, I guess, is like we're so obsessed with like these people who do bad things, and in the media we need to just be very careful not to play to those kind of base instincts.
Right. We need the information. We need to know, are there warning signs? We need to know the methodology, or the what they did before, and some of the things that we should be looking for. But at the same time, again, not putting them up on a pedestal and idolizing them. And I understand we do have, again, you mentioned the prurient nature of people, that, we do have a fascination with people who have done bad things, who have broken the law. And my wife is a true crime junkie. And sometimes I'll walk in and she'll be watching something and I'll like, man, this is so depressing. Why are you? She's like, I'm fascinated with how these people feel, what their mindset is, and how it's so antisocial and all these other kind of things. And I can see that. But again, there's such a fine line there between, and maybe if you came back 20 years after the fact and talked about it, like in the
Yeah.
Dahmer or the Bundy or things like that, it's one thing. But in the moment when things are happening, that I don't think is the time to, I don't think that is the time to be bringing that out.
Yeah,
And
because
again,
there's such a
glorifying.
high cost to pay for
Yeah.
that, with the contagious effects.
Yeah. The glorification of that is interesting. Zach, let's wrap up on this part of your video report. Final recommendations that came out from Langford, from the FBI. Your thoughts? What should the media be doing specifically? And I also want to break or work sidebar a little bit and talk about the aspect of firearms in these issues. But what is your thoughts and your recommendations to your colleagues in media as you see this? What are the final recommendations here?
So more than about 150 researchers joined Langford in signing this open letter, and it's just asking the major media to adopt those new norms for covering mass killings. And really, at the beginning, there kind of needs to be like, taking a public stand of like announcing like, this is the new policy at CNN or Fox or whatever, NBC News. We're given the harms, we're not going to be publishing their pictures or their names anymore. The information is out there for the people who need it, but we're not going to amplify it. And that alone would go a long way. And I think, separately from that, one thing we try to do at Reason a lot is just put risks in perspective, because there's sensational things that happen, whether they're these kind of shootings or a terrorist attack, and you have to put the relative risk in perspective and say, in the large scheme of things, you're pretty safe sending your kids to school. You're probably not going to get killed by a terrorist. So we need to think about the policies that follow there and whether they are an overreaction, whether it is the entire security apparatus that arose after the terrorist attacks back on September 11th, or kind of the policies that inevitably get trotted out every time one of these horrific but mercifully relatively rare mass shooting events happens. The media really has a responsibility to work against those natural incentives to amplify risk and stoke panic, and instead put it in perspective and help people think rationally about it.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't be doing justice to Firearms Friday if we didn't talk a little bit about the reaction to the firearms and things like that. And I think you're coming back into that, because if you watch the news media in America, you would think that these incidents happen on every corner, every day, all day. I've told a story. One of my best friends was trying to get a friend of his to come over from Spain, and to visit him. And her father said, I don't want you going to America. You could be killed immediately in America. I mean, it'll happen all the time. And again, statistically, mass shootings account for less than 0.5% of any death in the entire United States. I mean, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to be, but that's not the way that it's portrayed in the media. And the vilification of the tool, the firearm, doesn't, I mean, we've had people run down trick-or-treaters with a truck, mass knifings and shootings, poisonings, I mean, all these other things, the vilification. And again, it's like they glorify it by continuing to run and hyping the danger because fear sells, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we've all seen that over the past couple years as well. Just there's a lot of incentives to hype things to the most extreme degree and use lots of the color red to make people scared about certain things. And we just need. I think that the main thing going forward is that things need to be put in their proper perspective, and there needs to be a little bit more statistical literacy among journalists.
Right. No, and I would agree. And I guess statistical honesty. I mean, really, that's the thing. I mean, I wish every now and then some journalists would say, in the United States, there were 13,000 homicides last year with firearms in a country of 330 million people.
Yeah.
That's a statistic that most people don't think about. And I'm not trying to minimize the deaths of those 13,000 people, but I'm trying to say it is not the epidemic that many talking heads, politicians, policymakers are trying to portray it as.
Yeah, we know that, a lot of gun deaths are, again, suicides. So that's kind of different from, what you imagine when people talk about gun violence. And we were talking about suicide and the efforts that were made to mitigate the media coverage around that. When you think about statistics and how rare an event is, if some very if a horrific splashy, like media friendly type of occurrence like this happens, you might want to think about, if you're the person in charge of programming the coverage, like, do we need to devote 5 straight days to this, or is is it more of a local story that doesn't need to be doesn't warrant wall-to-wall coverage on like a national broadcast for a week straight?
Right. No, I would agree. Zach Weissmueller, our guest, Reason Magazine. Zach, we're coming down to the last 90 seconds or so here. Anything new you're working on that you'd like to let folks know about? Something that you think they should be concerned over?
Sure. I'm on the opposite side of the continent here from you, down in Florida. Thankfully, I was spared. I'm in the upper northeastern corner, so I was spared from the worst of the horrible hurricane that just hit. But I have started covering more about Florida politics. DeSantis, the governor here, is obviously a national figure now, a likely 2024 contender. And he's passing some laws here he's signing some bills into law here, kind of fighting what people call wokeness. And so I have documentary about a new law that just went into effect here called the Stop Woke Act, and what is motivating that, whether it is going too far in getting the government involved with allowing what can be taught in a college classroom or in a corporate boardroom. So that's my next project, probably coming out next week.
Can't wait to see it. Zach Weissmueller, Reason Magazine, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Hold the line for just a second. Folks, we're out of time for hour one, the Michael Dukes Show. If you got to go, be kind, love one another, live well. We'll be back with more after this. Zach, thank you so much for coming on board. One more bite at the apple in case we missed anything that you thought we should cover. I'd love to hear anything else you wanted to hit on the way out the door here.
Sure. And thank you so much for having me on. This was a really great conversation. I'm going to have to start tuning in on Firearms Fridays. But one thing is that I had in the piece near the end was this story of this guy, Elijah Dickens, who stopped shortly after Uvalde. There was an attempted mass shooting at a shopping mall. And this guy, Elijah Dickens, was armed and shot the killer before he could do a ton of damage. He unfortunately did kill a couple people, but would have been a lot more without this intervention. And that's what the police on the scene said. This received a little bit of coverage, not much coverage. Elijah Dickens is not someone who is, a household name. So I'm just was bringing that up in the context of, what if those were the stories that got a little bit more coverage, because you're actually showing the consequences. Like, hey, if you try, you're going to find out if someone armed is on the scene, and that could actually act as a disincentive. But from the media perspective, where there's this kind of hostility towards firearms, I think that's a tough story for a lot of them to cover.
Yeah, look, can I be brazen here for a minute and suggest a topic for a future story? Yep. I've talked about this a lot. Defensive gun use, DGU, in this country. They keep talking about the number of course, they conflate suicides and homicides. So it's, 38,000 people die. Well, again, 65% of those are suicides. So the 13,000 are the actual homicides. But my suggestion has been, okay, so you have 13,000 roughly homicides a year. What about the use of guns where there's never a shot fired, where the mere presence of a firearm stops it? Statistics on DGU shows that it's anywhere, depending on who's looking at it, from 90,000 to 2.5 million a year. I mean, I think that's the unsung story that the news media just refuses to cover in general. The good guy with a gun is not a myth. I mean, Dickens proves that. The good guy with a gun is not a myth. And I think it's a story that people would love to see, especially statistically with the numbers behind it. It could make an impression.
That's a great idea. I will certainly consider that. That would be a very interesting story. One other thing that I'll mention, just for the people that are watching this in the chat and so forth, is Reason. I was not involved with this piece, but we just put out a video piece called "Guns Are Contra New York Times and CDC. Guns are not a public health issue," because that is now kind of the fad is putting gun control under the rubric of public health, now that the public health establishment is more powerful than ever. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in this stuff to check that out as well.
You bet. I've seen this question now 3 or 4 times in the chat room. Are you related to Johnny Weissmueller? That's the question.
I get that a lot, and it's back in the family lore, but I have not been able to prove it. But maybe one day I'll investigate further.
Well, Zach, this was a very enjoyable segment for me, and I would like to reserve the right to text you if you do something good in the future to invite you back on the program again, if you're willing to do it. We'd love to have you on.
I'd love to come back. Thanks.
Like I said, I love your work. I love what you do, and so keep doing it and keep being you. We appreciate you coming on and joining us today.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, Zach Weissmueller, Reason Magazine. Again, you can find him at reason.com. Thank you, Zach, for being part of the show today. All right, folks, that means that we are going to get into the next hour, the next segment of the show, which means that we need to fire up the phone lines. You know what that means, that I got to I'm going to try and not blast your ears out here as I reconnect the phone system. And okay, I think I did it. I think I did it without blowing your ears out. The one time I was looking at the waveform for the show after the fact, and it was like right here, and then I turned the phones on, and it went bam like this, and I'm sure everybody's ears were bleeding. So I'm glad we were able to do that without making your ears bleed or you flinch away from your telephone. Okay, so phone lines are now turned on, and we are ready to go. Boom. Yep, all done. Are we in the right mode?
All participants are muted.
Yep.
All participants are muted.
That's what I wanted right there. All participants are muted. Okay. So phone lines are open right now. We'll talk about any of the gun things that you want to talk about. It's that was some good stuff. Yeah, Elijah Dickens, Hawk says, like that young man who made a 40-yard shot with a handgun. That was pretty amazing. Bet the scumbag shooter wasn't expecting it. And that's who he was referring to. That was Elijah Dickens, the Greensville Mall, who stopped the Greensville Mall shooter. And those are the names that we need to put out there. The names of the people, the names of the good guys. But you noticed how the media coverage on that immediately went away. I mean, it was in the news for like one day, and then it was gone. But if that shooter had run unabated, we'd probably have had 5 days worth of wall-to-wall coverage on things like that. So anyway, pretty interesting stuff for Firearms Friday today. It was an enjoyable interview. I've been looking forward to that all week, and I'm glad it turned out as well as I thought it would. So thank you to Zach Weissmueller for coming on board and be a part of it today. Zach needs to keep an eye on that storm. It's coming back, says Jeannie. This was a good segment. Even Harold liked this segment. I guess that's high praise. Even Harold liked that segment. And I saw Donna Ardwin, our friend. Zach and all of his Reason.com colleagues are top-notch and great guests. They are. And I really enjoy them coming on board. And it's amazing that these big national guys would want to come on this little tiny radio show. It's kind of amazing. All right, hour 2 dead ahead. Let's do it. The Michael Duke Show. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday is the one day a week where we dedicate the show to the gun rights, the Second Amendment, firearms law, and just good old-fashioned gun talk. And we welcome you to the program. It is hour 2 of the big radio show. We just finished up with Zach Weissmueller from Reason Magazine. And if you missed it, man, that was a good interview. I really enjoyed talking with Zach. And you can go back and you can listen to it on the podcast, which will be available later this morning, wherever you find podcasts, including Apple Podcast, iTunes, Google, CastBox, Stitcher, Spotify. Any of those. Spotify is my favorite because it's the easiest. But we really appreciate Zach coming on. Of course, you can also go back, because he's a videographer, so he was on video with us. You can go back and watch it on our Facebook or our YouTube streams as well, and you can just put those on a playlist, and away you go. Good stuff for that. This hour of the program, we're going to open up the lines for what we like to call Gun Q&A. That is questions and answers, because, again, the whole point of the show on Fridays is to demystify the firearm and to counteract some of the misinformation, I guess I should say. The misinformation that you're getting from mainstream media, from the press, from the entertainment industry, the talking heads, and even, yes, the President of the United States, who, as I pointed out earlier in the last segment, also from Reason Magazine, JD Tuchili has an article on it talking about how the president continually just continues to willfully misrepresent the facts about firearms. Now, as a president, you have a responsibility to inform the public in a legal, lawful, truthful way. And yet the president has continued to espouse things that are completely wrong. They remember when the president said that when the amendment was passed, the Second Amendment was passed, it didn't say anybody could own a gun of any kind of gun and any kind of weapon. You couldn't buy a cannon when this amendment was passed, which we know is false, blatantly untrue. I mean, first of all, the Second Amendment says nothing about not owning a cannon or anything else, and we know that there was no state or federal law that barred possession of those weapons at the time either. That was fact-checked by the Annenberg Public Policy Center at factcheck.org. That's not necessarily a friendly organization to conservatives. They pointed out that is not the truth. That in fact, we've told stories about Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders on their way to fight on San Juan Hill, how they were gifted from 4 wealthy New York families. They were gifted Browning machine guns because they didn't have any, and private citizens purchased them and donated them to that cause. Citizens have been able to have weapons of war, quote unquote, since the very inception. They marched with weapons of war. That's what they shot with. That's what they hunted with. That's what they had with them on a daily basis. I mean, if you look at it, and the whole thing about weapons of war, that just, your dad's 30-06 rifle is based mostly and most likely in part on a weapon of war. The technology is there. I mean, a lever action cowboy rifle is a weapon of war. It was the standard issue firearm for the U.S. cavalry. I mean, it was, the use of words and the use of imagery that the left has become so proficient at continues to paint these pictures for people who just don't know. They just don't know. And in fact, they don't know what they don't know. And so they take this information and they run with it. But the imagery, I mean, again, the weapon of war, the assault rifle, these lies that we hear, the 9mm will just blow your lungs out. The AR-15 has a muzzle 5 times the muzzle velocity of any other gun. And, no, and none of those things are true. But even when he says something true, it has the negative connotation, because he was talking about, again, the speed of the bullet. The AR-15 travels 5 times as rapidly as a bullet shot out of any other gun. 5 times. Well, that's completely false. And then he says, and can pierce Kevlar, which is a truth, but he fails to tell you that any centerfire rifle cartridge, pretty much any centerfire rifle cartridge, can penetrate Kevlar, because Kevlar is not built to stop centerfire rifle cartridges, projectiles. It's made to stop handgun rounds. So if you're wearing a vest, it has to have, again, metal, steel, composite, ceramic plates in it to stop rifle rounds. I mean, I've seen plenty of vests that have stopped .308, the 300 Win Mag cartridges. They're big and they're bulky. It's not what your standard police officer wears. They wear Kevlar vests, which are made to stop handgun rounds. So again, even when he tells the truth, it's in a disingenuous way. And so it's up to us as members of the gun culture, as gun folks, to educate people about this kind of stuff. Again, not in a combative way, but in a, factual way. I mean, again, the average speed, again, I used it earlier. The average speed of an AR-15 around a 223 round, 5.45 or, 5.56 by 4.5 is about 3,100 feet per second. The average speed of a handgun round out of, say, a 45 ACP is about 1,980, right around there, 1,000 feet per second. So that's only 1/3 of a rifle round. But most rifle rounds travel upwards of, 2,000, 2,500 into the 3,000 range, and some well beyond that. Some travel at 4,000 feet per second. But here's the president saying that it's 5 times any other gun. So you just bring the data, bring the stats. Well, no, my 9mm shoots at 1,400 feet per second. That's not 5 times 3,100. That's half. But you would expect a rifle round to travel twice as fast as a pistol round because the cartridges it's twice as much powder, on a lighter projectile in some cases. So not surprising. You need to bring the facts in. And again, the whole Kevlar thing. Well, Kevlar vests are not meant to stop rifle rounds, so that makes no sense. Why would you even bring that up? That's the disinformation that we're trying to quell. That's the disinformation we're trying to point out. The whole cannon comment and the fact that people couldn't own any gun of any kind. They could. That was the point. Saying it doesn't make it so. And as much as the president would like it to be true, it's been debunked time and time and time again. But that's not going to stop them from keep saying it. So we have to continue to fight the fight and to, again, counteract that misinformation. Got to do it. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to bloviate there, but it's just one of those things that irritates me. This hour of the program being brought to by your friends over there at Satellite West. You can find them at satellitewest.com. They are your communication specialists in the state of Alaska, especially for remote locations. If you're in a remote location and you need to send an email or a text message or to check something on the internet or make a phone call, that's what Satellite West does. I mean, these guys are again, you give them 2 cans and a string and rub it together and they can connect you to a satellite. These guys are good. SatelliteWest.com. We want to say thank you for sponsoring the program for this hour today. Phone number to call is 907-433-3150. Gun Q&A. There is no such thing as a dumb gun question. We'd love to bring that up. Let's go over here to the phones and see what you have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Well, Mike, it's Fred in Rhode Island. How you been?
Hey, Fred. What's going on over there in Rhode Island, sir?
Not much. Same old over here. President Biden and the cronies of the anti-gun world. You can see that it's kind of obvious right now that they're up against a wall and they're grasping at any straw they can think they can hang on to because they know they're going down the slippery slope. Because they've run out of facts and they've run out of truths and they've run out of realistic information as to what they're pushing their cause on, and they're going after anything at all that they think that they can get any kind of mileage out of, to serve their purpose, and it's becoming obvious, the idiot in charge there. I mean, he has no original ideas of his own. I'm sure of that, but he's just going by the rest of the idiots who know not much more than he does as to items on this issue,
right?
And they're using the crowbar of crap to try to pry their way into something that they think they can get some mileage on. And it's obvious. It's overly obvious that they're fighting a losing battle, because there isn't an ounce of truth into it anyway. It's all garbage. It's all. And I still say it's a world domination of the people's rights, and they're starting with the Second Amendment, because that's the only real threat that they have against them, to prevent them from actually doing their dastardly deed of taking over the world,
right,
and everybody in it.
Well,
except for themselves, of course.
I mean, we've talked about that in the past, Fred. I mean, that that there is this narrative, this belief amongst many people that usually on the progressive side of the scale, that the only way forward is with the direct benevolent intervention of government, right? And if you've got people who don't want to have benevolent government thrust on them, they only have a couple ways to fight back, and one of them is, again, the implicit threat of being armed. And they would love to disarm them so that they could proceed to tell us how to live. That's part of the issue. I mean, that's the beauty of the Second Amendment, is that it is the implied threat. That's what's kept politicians in this country in check for years, is the implied threat that something could happen, that if they go too far, the citizenry has the ability to fight back. And I think that's what's kept us as free as it has. And what you're seeing from people like Joe Biden and others is this continual drip, drip, drip into the ears of people who are not gun people, who are not familiar, who are not aware, and who won't take the time to do the research on it. They proceed to drip these lies into their ears. And then people say, well, sure, I'm against that. I wouldn't want, people to have cannons. I wouldn't want people to have this or that or the other thing. And they just don't know what they don't know. And so they, a lie often, oft repeated becomes the truth. And that's what we're seeing here. So if we don't counteract it, we will allow those new truths, quote unquote, to become reality. And so we've got to counteract it all the time.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right on that. And the other thing I want to bring out, there's, as far as the media, your previous one was Zach. Previous, President issue with Zach. He's spot on. He's absolutely spot on. The media, they're as much of the problem as a problem itself. If anything, they're a major piece of the puzzle as far as like gun violence and all these school shootings and all this other nonsense. And they just promote it, because for their own purpose. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're, I'm not going to come across, I don't want to come across as someone wearing a tinfoil hat, but I think that there's a major conspiracy going on at some level, either the international or within the domestic level, and or both, in working in cohesion with each other, as to what is going on as far as like promoting this to happen, because they tried other things in the past and it's failed. Bloomberg's gone hundreds of millions of dollars into anti-gun programs and it's gone flat on its face. So I think once again they're getting desperate, and you ask yourself a couple of loose issues that were never really addressed. This guy in Uvalde, where did he get all the money to buy those weapons as flipping burgers at Wendy's? He's not going to make that kind of money. You're talking like $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 for all the crap he had.
Right.
They don't have that kind of money at hand unless somebody was helping. That's where we really got to start looking at.
Well, yeah, we
really got to start prying that one apart.
We could dive down into the rabbit hole of where did these monies come from and how did they do it. I guess one shooter bought, I can't remember if it was the Uvalde one or the one before. He had 2 Daniel defense rifles, which are like $3,000, $4,000 rifles. Where did he get the money for that? And did he just put it on a credit card, or was he able to do it? I mean, I think there's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that they really got to be looking at. I think we have, and I think once you pry the cover off that, when you talk about a news story, holy smokes, that will go to the moon and back.
Yeah. All right. Well, Fred, thank you for calling in, and thanks for listening to Firearms Friday here from Rhode Island. We appreciate you calling in, my friend. Thanks for it.
Well, you have a good week, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.
Okay. Thanks so much, Fred. Phone number to call again, 907-433-3150. We are coming up on the next break. We got one more segment where we can take some calls and talk with you about firearms and firearms goodness. We'll be back. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the breaks right now. Anyone hearing about the Short Act bill? Short Act. Short Act bill. The Landerson-Petrus Short Act. I'm not sure if that. What did it affect? What does it affect? Gravely ill, provide a patient's Bill of Rights. I don't think that's what you're talking about. That's a California law. You have to give me a bill number there, Ted. I don't see anything else on there. I don't see what's going on. Let's see. Jeannie asked about Jeff and Homer. I think Jeff and Homer's out on a boat. I think he's been out on a boat all summer. I think he's been working all summer. He said that he disappeared last year too for most of the summer because he was out working, doing stuff. So I believe that he's probably still out on a boat. The Short Act prevents middle-aged guys from wearing cargo shorts. Well, I am definitely opposed to that because I love me some cargo shorts. So I am definitely opposed to that. I mean, how else am I supposed to carry all my gear in my shorts? They must be cargo shorts. That's what I'm saying right there. Catherine said they got millions of people to believe an insurrection happened by unarmed people. Facts and common sense don't matter. Again, a lie oft repeated becomes the truth. And that's why we keep hearing about things like, that the AR is, will kill you and blow you apart, and it travels 5 times the of any other gun, and again they make it out to be this super weapon, right? I mean, it's like it's a laser beam from space and it's deadly, and I mean again, no deadlier than any other center fire rifle, semi-automatic semi-fire rifle. That's the thing. But many people, they have no clue. They wouldn't even know where to begin on this. They hear this, they think, oh yeah, well that makes it scary. So we should definitely probably ban that, because why do you need something that goes 5 times faster than, so then I start asking about, well, why buy, what about supercars? Who needs a supercar? Who needs a car that goes faster than 55 miles an hour? That's the speed limit, right? Why do you need a car? Freaking laser beams. That's exactly, is that what we're treating it like now? It is a way, again, to just try and divide us. It's just a way to try and divide us. That's exactly what it is. Mini 14, same as somebody just said, I got a Mini Ruger that will do anything an AR will do. Exactly. Your Mini 14, your SKS, the SKS shoots a larger cartridge. It's a, I would argue that I would rather shot by an AR-15 than an SKS, or an AK-47 or an M14 or anything else, because while it does tumble and it does, but again, I would much rather be shot by a smaller caliber than a larger caliber, right? Just because. But the way they put it out there, they make it sound scary. Remember, that's where ghost guns came from. That's the phrase ghost guns, because ghosts are scary. So they're ghost guns because they fade into the wall and you can't see them until they rise up out of the floor and they shoot you all by themselves. What? But again, that's the kind of the implication behind it. Capturing the language. It's an important, I've been talking about that for 20 years. We've watched that for 20 years, how, politicians, they hire a lot of smart people. They hire consultants and other people and everything else who are pretty damn sharp. And they know that by capturing the language, they can sway hearts and minds. Don't think they can't. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Okay. I was going to poll the chat room and ask them which story I should lead with here in this last segment of the show if we didn't get any phone calls. And I don't have any phone calls right now. All 4 lines are open if you'd like to sound off on Firearms Friday, if you'd like to ask a gun question. If you are one of the people out there who's gun curious, you're not really for or against guns, but you have some questions, we're here to answer them. Just give us a call, 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. We'd love to hear from you this morning. I was going to ask the chat room which story that I should go with, but since I didn't, I guess I will just ask them. I guess I'll just talk about them in the order that I would want to talk about them. You ever watched those? You ever watched that show? Or the YouTube channels for the people who are like storage wars. You know what I mean? People who go in and buy storage units, kind of like they get to open the door, they get to look inside, and then they close the door and they're like, okay, make a bid. I find those shows fascinating because sometimes other people's junk is just super interesting to me. But here's a story that really caught my attention. A Texas couple, purchased a lot of 100 Hardig gun cases from a military surplus website. And Hardig gun cases, for those of you who don't know, are hard-sided they're hard-sided cases, and they've got racks built into them to hold like a dozen rifles inside a hard case. It's for transport, right? For transporting rifles and things like that. And the Hardig cases are built specifically to haul M4s, M16s. But they obviously, because they're similar in shape and size to AR-15s, they will hold AR-15s. So a couple in Texas purchased from a military surplus website, they purchased 100 Hardig gun cases. All I could think of was, man, I want one of those. Just one. I don't need 100, just one. Imagine their surprise when they were going to turn and flip these products around on eBay, but they were going through them, cleaning them up, wiping them down, doing everything else. And they crack open one case and they discover inside 12 select fire M16 rifles. Not AR-15s, but M4, M16 rifles. Apparently, somebody back in the military, whoever was, where they supposedly track these guns to their nth degree, either mislaid a dozen M16 rifles or maybe was attempting to steal them with the thought of going back and getting them. But this case was chock full of full automatic or select fire, which means they can go full burst or whatever, rifles. Well, I guess some people would have just done the SSS, just the shoot, shovel, and shut up stuff. But this couple, they were a little more honest, not sure what to do. They reported it to the local authorities, and within just a few hours, the BATF&E showed up and seized the single box and got a search warrant for the storage unit that contained 100 more. And they were just, again, shocked, I tell you, that there could be 12 military rifles in this case. According to the Houston police captain and former Marine Greg Freeman, He says, it's almost surreal to believe something like that happened nowadays. It's incredible. It's unbelievable to think weapons of that grade, military-grade weapons, would be shipped in containers, would be shipped across state lines, and somebody have access to it. It's pretty shocking. He said the military carefully tracks all its weapons because any misplaced weapons can be extremely dangerous. For these boxes to have M16s in them and being shipped to a public destination, not only is it shocking, it's a federal crime. Well, apparently the military isn't really tracking their weapons as carefully as he says they are, since at least a dozen of them, again, ended up in a military surplus store. And in fact, the AP ran a pretty big story recently that just this last year that pointed to the theft of at least 1,900 military firearms in a 9-year period. That in many cases, the military had no idea they were missing until the guns were actually found at crime scenes. Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, pistols, machine guns, shotguns, automatic assault rifles, all vanished from armories, warehouses, depots, supply dumps, Navy warships, firing ranges, and they didn't even know until they were picked up and used in a crime. It was, I mean, it's insane. All right, let me go over to the phone lines here. But again, you imagine being that couple and cracking open this case and be like, this case is a little heavier than the other ones. Oh, my goodness. Let's go over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Mike. This is Jeremy in Castiva.
Hello, Jeremy. What's up, my friend?
Well, I was going to talk about ammunition manufacturing.
Okay. Hit us with your thoughts on ammo manufacturing.
Well, if you go to buy armor-piercing rounds or those tracer rounds, then that's going to hit the feds, because they'll know about it. So you got to make your own. Right? So you can take hollow point like from an AR-15, and you can get those titanium rods, and then you just cut off a little piece of that and drop it down into the hollow point, and then put a little bead of wax over it, and you have an armor-piercing round just like that.
I know people who've had armor piercing rounds and tracers for years. I don't think that there's any, I don't know if you can buy it new or if it's just surplus, but I mean, we've shot plenty of, tracer rounds at the range and things over the years. It is, I don't think you can use them for hunting, but.
Well, they're like $40. They're like $40 for 10 rounds.
Well, sure. I mean, they're not.
So you better get ready to spend some money.
Yeah, no, they're not cheap. I'm not saying that they're cheap, but you can get them. And yeah, people have been doing those kind of things for years. It used to be that you would take a hollow point bullet, any hollow point bullet, whether it was a rifle or a pistol round, and you could drop a pellet. You could drop a shotgun pellet of a appropriate size into the cavity and wax it off and do it. There are definitely different ways of doing it.
I heard of people doing putting mercury in the hollow point too. Which is supposed to have some pretty amazing effect.
Well, it definitely would have the effect of poisoning you. I definitely see that going on. Jeremy, thank you for calling in. I'm sorry I'm coming up on the break here. We got to go. Folks, the Michael Duke Show continues. It is your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We got Willie Waffle coming up next with a weekend movie review. Here we go. Sorry about that. I was running out of time. I mean, I've seen people do all kinds of crazy things with ammunition. Mercury, though, first of all, oh, man, who would want to handle that? Second of all, damn. All that mercury straight into your bloodstream, I mean, that could get you in some serious trouble. If that was like a defensive round and you ended up shooting somebody with it, I could see the law coming after you for... I don't know if it would be premeditation or I'm sure that they wouldn't be happy with you, right? I mean, that's like when you set up a booby trap with a shotgun on a door. They always talk about that could be premeditation. And even if you're trying to protect yourself, it could, you could get in trouble with that. That would be nasty. But yeah, the EPA could come down on you like nothing you've ever seen. It's possible. It's possible. Anyway, let's see. I'm going back up here to see what others have said. Willie and Homer said M1 Garand is larger, but not black and scary. Exactly. It's not black and scary. So that's what it's all about. Let's see. My Mini had like a 2-minute 2-inch MOA at 200 yards. Ugh, my shotgun was 1 inch. Yeah, I know. As Dwayne says, jackpot, major score. With all those ARs, there are all those M16s that showed up in the box. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. Like I said, some people would just be like, oh, let me close that back up and put that back in the corner. But they did the right thing, right? I mean, they contacted the ATF and said, or the local law and said, here you go. And then the ATF is like, ooh, okay. Liberal gun control equals sending thousands of full autos on pallets to enter world black market via Ukraine and other wars while trying to disarm us. You're kind of not wrong. Right? I mean, that's the irony of it. We shouldn't have all these things, but we're willing to pump thousands and thousands and thousands of guns across the border into Mexico. We're willing to send them to Ukraine. We're willing to send them all these other places, but that's fine. That's fine. Let's see what else you guys said here. EPA is okay. All right. I think we're all caught up. Is a thing. Rick says division. I was talking about they wanted to divide us. Rick said division is their plan. Yeah, I would agree. Ted says that the short bill that he was talking about, which I haven't seen anything on yet, is to take SBRs off the table and change the IRS bill of 1986. I've not heard of that yet. I've not seen that yet, Ted. Maybe we'll get some more information on that here in the coming weeks, and I can see if we can have a Firearms Friday about it. See what they have to say about it. All right, that's it. What are you guys doing this weekend? What are you guys doing? I hate to say it, but I think I'm tearing my studio apart this weekend. Looking around at all this stuff, I think I got some upgrades to do, and I've had all the parts to do the upgrades for like 3 months. But I am very leery of trying to take apart. Everything's working, right? Everything's working well, and I'm terrified that if I take it apart and put it back together, that something won't work well, and then I'll spend all weekend desperately trying to get it back ready for Monday morning. That's my fear. That is my fear right there. Dwayne's going to the peninsula to go fishing for the next week and a half, and Rick is just going to watch it rain. Which, yeah, I guess there you go. That's what this. I know. I don't mean to gripe and bitch about it, but I am sick of the rain. I mean, we've had some nice days. We've had some nice, a handful, couple. One day it'll stop raining for a few hours and it'll get sunshiny and nice. Oh, it's been so nice. And then boom, more rain. It's crazy. What are we going to do? All right. You're going to mow the lawn with a boat propeller. Bitch all you want, says Rick. Well, I can't, it doesn't change anything. All right. Well, folks, do me a favor. Would you share this video? Would you share the video? Would you like and share the show page? Like and follow the show page, subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube and everything else. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And to share it with your friends and your neighbors and your relatives and with other people to bring more people on board for Firearms Friday. We'd love that. Somebody just called in on the phone lines and I should have turned them off because my phone is buzzing over here with Willie. So we're going to have to jump into this with Willie Waffle here in about 20 seconds. So sorry, caller, if you're on the air, I'm kicking you to the curb. So apologies. But we're not going to have any more time for phone calls this morning. And there's the ding. That's what tells us right there. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like it, share. We're going to go do Willie right now. Here we go. Okay, it's almost the weekend. You know it's not the weekend until after we talk to Willie, right? I mean, that's when it's the official start of the weekend. Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com, joins us this morning to talk about stuff and things and entertainment and movies and everything else. Good morning, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I hope everybody's ready for a big, exciting weekend.
I'm pretty excited. You know, it's getting colder outside. The leaves are turning. You know, we're waiting for snow, blah, blah, blah. But any time for the weekend, it's a good time to relax and rest and catch some good entertainment stuff. So let's start off with the news. I guess we'll start off with your bad news. I mean, it's bad news for me, too, because I'm a bit of a Trekkie. But Star Trek, the movie, don't get your hopes up, I guess, right?
Right. And this is the amazing thing. So we had this big surprise announcement. You might remember, I want to say it was like 6 months ago or something. We're going to have a new Star Trek movie. We're going to have it by Christmas of 2023. And we've got the whole cast. And the whole cast is like, really? Because I don't remember signing the contract for that.
Right.
And so, you know, this seemed to be getting fast tracked. They had a script, supposedly. They were gonna start getting ready to make it, and the whole thing has fallen apart. Their director has left. Matt Shankman, he left in August. He signed on to direct the next Fantastic Four movie because, oh God, he must love pain or something. But Paramount has removed Star Trek from the calendar. They don't even know if there's going to be another one anymore.
Oh, man. All right. Well, it sounds like the PR department got well ahead of the power curve on some of those things. Oh, yeah, it's going to be a Star Trek movie. It's going to be great. Here's when it's coming out. Wait a minute.
Well, and you know, I'll be honest with you. There's one Star Trek movie I want to see. There is an idea, and I believe he has developed something of an outline of the script. Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek.
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Matter of fact, it was at one time that there was a debate. Would they do Quentin Tarantino Star Trek or would they do a traditional Star Trek when the next one came around? I say you go for it.
Man.
You swing for the fences, man. What's the worst that could happen?
Well, I can't imagine that. I mean, Gene Roddenberry being the peace, love, utopian society kind of guy that he is, you put Quentin Tarantino in charge of it, blood and guts and burn. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting. It'd be an interesting take.
And don't forget, there's going to be a lot of cursing.
Well, and there'd be a lot of cursing. Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's not something they do in Star Trek movies, remember?
Yeah, exactly. Because again, it's a utopian society. Everybody stops swearing. I don't know why, but you know. Okay, well, I guess we'll wait and see. But on the other side of the coin, the other big blockbuster space franchise, Star Wars, we got some. Is it good news? Is it bad news? Is it sad news? I'm not sure. What is it here?
Yeah, get ready for the next big thing, okay? So James Earl Jones has pretty much said he's retiring and he will no longer be doing the voice of Darth Vader. But he has struck a deal with this company that has an agreement with Lucasfilms that they are going to use artificial intelligence to create his voice as Darth Vader in the future.
Right.
And so whenever Darth Vader is going to be in a movie or a TV show, it will be James Earl Jones's voice. And they used a little bit of this for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series earlier in the year. So, you know, James Earl Jones is like, hey, this is great for me because, you know, I can't do this forever. I think he's trying to say he can't do it now. And so, you know, he struck this deal. Of course, you know, he'll get handsomely rewarded, as they say.
Right.
But guess who made a similar announcement yesterday? That would be Bruce Willis.
Really? Well,
yes.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis went further. He has also approved the use of his likeness, so
So-
they can recreate him on the screen as a character.
Digital deep fake kind of things,
Yep.
which we've seen. They've got apps for it now. I mean, it's out there. This is interesting, and let me tell you something. Now, as a voice actor, which for those listeners that don't know, I do that. It's a part of my job on the outside as I do voice acting. One of the things that's been troubling to those of us that do that is this AI technology. We're seeing more and more companies that are coming out with, AI technology that'll read your commercial or read your e-learning script or your animation, whatever, your character stuff, your audiobook. And as a voice actor, it kind of is worrying to me, because I'm like, that's an art, and I don't know if anyway. But then you see this, and of course, Val Kilmer most recently had his whole thing where they did the whole biopic on him, and they reconstructed his voice based off of dialogue and stuff scraped from movies for years, and he was actually able to talk again because he's got some kind of throat cancer thing, right, where his voice is gone. And so now this whole thing, he narrates it with this new voice, which you can't really tell is not his voice. It's AI. It's kind of spooky. I mean, it really is kind of spooky and weird, but I guess if you're getting paid for it, more power to you at that point.
Yeah, but here's what bothers me. They're going to take all the jobs, man. Like seriously, if they've made this kind of investment in James Earl Jones, in Bruce Willis, what's going to stop them from saying, hey, we need to make a couple of bucks? Shakey's car emporium down the street is willing to give us $1,000 because they want Bruce Willis to do their commercial.
Right.
Let's go for it.
Right.
And I'll tell you who's going to regret it is the families. I mean, look what's happening right now. There's a little minor thing going on right now with Neil Young. Neil Young last year sold the rights to his music. He cashed in. He got hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
And then NBC started using Old Man, for one of the promotions for NFL football, talking about Tom Brady.
Right.
And Neil Young was upset, and I'm thinking, Neil, you sold the rights, buddy.
Yeah,
you're stuck.
Yeah, you got no word. Well, and I saw something there was an article about this. Sorry, we're deep diving on this, but there was an article on this about using the voice AI and then the likeness AI, and they were talking about if they were to secure the rights from these things from various states, there's nothing to say you couldn't have a new Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley movie.
Right.
There's no, it would just be. I mean, I guess okay, but it's just so weird. It unsettles me. Let me just put it that way. It's unsettling in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it feels like you're halting the evolution of society.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like there will be no one new who's going to be famous or capture your attention,
right,
or be the next great actor, because we're just going to use all the ones you know.
Well, and that's it. I mean, what if they made a sequel to Casablanca or something? With Humphrey Bogart. I mean, it's just weird. And who knows? Maybe we're making much ado about nothing, but. Anyway, the technology's there, so we'll see what happens to it. Okay. I guess there was a big breakup. Another Hollywood breakup, but not the way that you think. Tell me about this one.
Oprah Winfrey and Apple TV Plus have just mutually separated. They have decided that they are ending their relationship. Yes, two of the richest entities on the planet. Oprah had a big multi-year deal with Apple TV, and she brought them things like the Sidney Poitier documentary. Well, that was nice, and this documentary series, The Me You Don't See, which featured the Harry formerly known as Prince Harry.
Right.
And
exactly.
and no one wants to say this, but I'm going to say this. Apple TV was probably sitting back going, you had that big interview with Meghan Markle and Harry, and you took it to CBS, and you had that big interview with Adele, and you took it to CBS. Yeah, we're not very happy.
Right. She didn't offer them the projects, and so maybe that's part of the deal as to why they're splitting the sheets. I'm sure it's all amicable and nobody's saying anything, but okay. All right, great.
Yeah. It's like, I'm dating two people, he's gonna get the Christmas and New Year's, but don't worry, baby, you got Arbor Day.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I'm not losing any sleep over that, and I'm also not losing any sleep over the fact that Russia, the evil empire that's invaded the Ukraine and killed all those people, and I mean all the news that's coming out today anyway, they are boycotting the Oscars.
dear God.
That'll show them.
I mean, woo, that'll put the Hollywood do-gooders right on their heels, huh?
Right.
You mean you won't be submitting a movie for best foreign language picture?
I know, really. I know.
How will we survive?
Yeah, well, nobody wanted to watch a black and white movie subtitled in Super 8. Okay, I mean, nobody wanted.
That's right.
That's what's coming.
Lots of smoking.
With lots of smoking. Yeah, it's coming out of Russia these days. Again, not the height of the film world, Russia these days. But okay, well, all right, we're not gonna lose. I tell you, the best piece of good news though, and I want to get to this real quick.
Yeah,
is I saw the trailer yesterday, day before. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool 3, and through the back of the room walks none other than Hugh Jackman, and he's like, "Hey, Hugh, you want to do Wolverine one more time?" And he's like, "Okay, Ryan," and walks out of the room. So Deadpool 3 is now going to feature. We thought he was done. We thought it was all over. Wolverine, Hugh Jackman's going to appear and not as a cameo. This is like a deep part, right?
Yeah, this is going to be a big part. This is going to be a really big part. And that's what really gets me. There was all this talk. I remember it very, very vividly. When the Logan movie came out, it's like, this is the last time he's ever going to play Wolverine. Oh, I'm getting a little bit older. I can't do it all the time. I'm going to do some other things. I think I've done everything I can with the character. Well, hey, do you hear that? Beep, beep,
yeah,
beep. That's the Brinks truck backing up to Hugh Jackman's place right now.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart.
Well,
ka-ching.
I'm sure it's ka-ching. But it's got to also be Ryan Reynolds, because Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have a huge friendship. I mean, it's the frenemies thing that they put on all the social, but those guys are like, they're best buddies, and it's amazing to see. I think that he probably did it for the money, yes, but also a chance to actually be in the same movie again, because let's face it, that happened early on. That whole Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson getting his face sewed off and everything. But I mean, you got to admit it. This was probably just an amazing opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I think that probably what sealed it, let's face it, the Deadpool movies have been pretty darn awesome. And Ryan Reynolds had a lot of good ideas. I bet he sold the idea to Hugh Jackman. Jackman went, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I can't wait. And that's 2024, they're saying now for a Deadpool 3. So we'll see. We'll see.
Man, I hope I can make it.
I know.
I hope I can make it.
I hope the world doesn't end between now and then. All right. We only have about 2.5, 3 minutes here. So Smile quickly. Sosie Bacon. Give me the deal.
Yeah, so she's the psychiatrist in an emergency psych unit, and this patient comes in who keeps talking about this evil entity that's been chasing her. And when that patient dies, the entity jumps into our psychiatrist, or it starts to bother our psychiatrist. And everywhere she goes, it presents itself when it makes people smile in the most creepy way possible. And then mayhem begins. Let me tell you, this is a really good horror movie.
Is it really?
Everything about it is so creepy and so weird. And I love how they do this from so many different perspectives, so many different camera shots. What she's seeing, we kind of see upside down. We see from different angles. We have different lighting. It makes it so tense and so weird. And every single actor who has to do that creepy smile was fantastic. I'm going 3 waffles for Smile.
Wow. Okay. All right. Good. All right. The next one, 3 waffles, Smile, and it's in theaters only. It's not on the screen.
Yes, only in theaters.
Yep. The next one, my wife has been wanting to watch. She's a huge Marilyn Monroe fan, and it is the new Ana de Armas joint on Netflix, and it's called Blonde. Now, unfortunately, Terry and I were talking about this yesterday, and she's like, this thing is getting killed by Marilyn Monroe fans. And I'm like, well, it's a different retelling of, she goes, I know. She goes, it's just going to be weird. I'm wondering what Willie's going to say. So Blonde, a fictional telling of Marilyn Monroe's life. What do you say?
Well, and that's where I think that the biggest trouble begins, is that, it's walking this fine line. It is a fictional story. We're not saying all these things happened, but yet a lot of these things happened. And, we're not necessarily saying that was President Kennedy, but we know it was. We're not saying that was Joe DiMaggio, but we know it was.
Right.
And so, you're constantly playing this game throughout the movie. Did that really happen? Was that really what happened? And I think that does a disservice to it, because it really is supposed to be an examination of just what a troubled life this woman had, and the emptiness and the sorrow, and the way she was used by just about every single person that came across her, and you feel that pain for her, and you feel that sadness for her, and it is very compelling. It's an extremely artsy movie. I mean, you're going to see things in here that are just kind of out of left field, and it's rated NC-17.
Oh,
so you're also going to see a lot of stuff. You're
Okay.
going to see parts of Ana de Armas that even like Ben Affleck didn't see when he dated her.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, maybe I guess maybe I'll avoid it then. But a -1 to 4 waffles on Blonde, the fictional telling.
I thought it was pretty compelling. I'm going to go 2.5 waffles. I think it runs out of a lot of steam towards the end. I don't like I said, don't like the game playing what really happened, what didn't. But I could see Ana de Armas getting an Oscar nomination, because she is fantastic.
All right, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Thank you, my friend. Folks, we're out of time on Monday. Kelly Shibaka is going to be joining us. We will see you then. Have a great weekend. Yeah, I didn't realize that it was. I didn't realize that it was sexy time. NC-17.
Oh man, but that's the thing. I mean, granted, she's pretty much topless the entire movie, almost, like a lot.
Wow.
But there's nothing sexy about it. I mean, it seems very abusive and raw.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
well,
no.
I mean, she's a very sad character. I mean, Marilyn Monroe as a person, she had a it was glamorous, I'm sure, in many ways, but she had a very tough life, and tragedy kind of followed her around a lot. So it'll be interesting from a biopic standpoint, although it's fictional. I mean, I had to laugh because it was that thing the first time that a friend of mine called and said he watched Inglourious Bastards, and he was like, this isn't how he was like, that's not how Hitler died, right? And I'm like, no, it was fiction. It was it's an alternate. He's like, oh, okay, because I didn't think that Hitler died that way. I'm like, nope, he didn't die that way. So, but it's a fictional telling of the Marilyn Monroe story, so they're going to take liberties. They're going to make it different.
Yeah, they are, but I am amazed at how many things really, like, when you go through this movie, there are a lot of things that they reference that really did happen.
Oh yeah,
and relationships that she really did have, and I think that's what makes it. I think that's what hooks you in, to be honest with you, because we want to see that story, we want to know that truth, and even though they make up a bunch of stuff, there's a lot of truth in there as well.
Interesting. Well, I'll let Terry know. She'll be interested to hear, and I'm sure we'll eventually watch it as well.
Yeah, just remember, almost 3 hours long.
Oh man, holy cow!
I know.
Okay.
I was surprised. I did not until the really last half hour. I felt like it was rolling along pretty well.
Strung right on by.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we ever talk about the movie Oblivion with Tom Cruise?
God,
I don't think we did.
I don't think we did. I'm trying to remember if I've seen it.
Yeah,
I must have seen it at some point.
I've seen the trailer a couple times in the last year or so, and then I saw something somebody posted yesterday. They said, well, Top Gun is magnificent. Let's remember the movie that Tom did with he names the director, same director as Maverick. He said, let's remember their first collaboration together, one of the best sci-fi movies ever. And I'm like, Oblivion, which I got to be honest, I enjoyed Tom Cruise in The Edge of Tomorrow.
That's the one I was thinking.
Yeah,
of when
which
you
is
started talking about sci-fi.
Yeah, that's a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed that one. This one is different, and I'm going to have to watch it. But maybe we should watch it. Have a watch party. Maybe we should watch it and then talk about it next week if you get a chance to. I'm just saying.
Yeah, because I mean, I must have seen it at some point in my life. I just don't remember.
Yeah,
I mean, what does that tell you?
Yeah, well, that's remember it was the pandemic, right? This thing came out in 2013, actually. So I'm interested to see what it looks like. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Okay.
All right, I'm up for it,
folks. Really, this time out of time. Got to go. Kelly Chewbacca, our guest, confirmed. We may have one other guest, but Kelly Chewbacca confirmed for Monday for sure at 6:24, and then potentially John Bennett at 7:05. We will continue. We got to go. Thanks for coming in and joining us. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We will see you then. Have a great weekend.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.